Okay, so. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Jeff Hill,
Present.
Elena Lane,
Here.
Billy Kenton.
Here.
Mark Dolson,
Here.
Cheryl Adams.
Present.
Okay, everyone's here.
Okay, oral communications. This portion of the agenda is reserved for oral communications by the public for items which are not on the agenda. Please understand the California law, the Brown Act, limits what the board can do regarding issues raised during oral communications. No action or discussion may occur on issues outside of those already listed on today's agenda. Any person may address the committee at this time on any subject that lies within the jurisdiction of the district. Normally, presentations must not exceed 5 minutes in length, and individuals may only speak once during oral communications. Any director may request that the matter be placed on a future agenda, or staff may be directed to provide a brief response. New business, opportunity for all of us to introduce each other. And so why don't we start at this end?
Lena Lang, I'm vice president of the board, and I've been working for the district for a while. I started out on the environmental committee, which later combined to the environmental and engineering, and I spent 3 years on those committees before becoming a director.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Hill. I'm a member of the board. I've been on the board for about 2.5 years. Originally, I was a citizen volunteer on Budget and Finance Committee, and then I was subsequently appointed to the board and then ran in for election 2 years ago, and have been on the board since.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Shelley Canton. I'm a recently retired operating room nurse from the UC system, and I've done that for 44 years. Policies are not unfamiliar to me. Thank you for that. Thought I got away from them once I retired, but no. I thought in my retirement, I moved up here to join my family, who's all up north. In fact, Ben Lomond, daughter there. So we come from a healthcare family. And I said, well, time to move up north from SoCal, and here I am. Thought I'd pitch in and do some community things.
Thank you. Yes. Mark?
So I'm Mark Dolson, and I'm a retired director of R&D, a longtime resident of Ben Lomond, and I've been on the admin committee for I think at least the last 3 years. I am also a member of a citizens group in the San Lorenzo Valley, Friends of San Lorenzo Valley Water, which tries to pay attention to issues affecting the water district and tries to help the public to remain informed about those. And part of my role there is that I attend all the district board meetings, and I produce detailed summaries of every board meeting and post those online. So you can always find those if you can't make it to a board meeting and you're curious about what happened. I can share that URL with people that are interested.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Cheryl Adams, new to the committee, fairly new to Boulder Creek. I moved here in 2022.
Up a little.
Sure. After a fire at my house that burned my house to the ground, I was living in El Dorado County and in a town called Grizzly Flats, and that was where the Caldor fire started. So I'm familiar with fire and with the aftermath, and I'm also familiar with having a small water district in the area, and have been supporting that water district for the last 20 plus years. So I also bring administrative experience to this committee. Worked in state service for 33 years, worked my way up to administration and was a manager of a section for a state department. So did lots of policy and procedures and supervision and all that goes in with that as well. So that's what I bring to the table today.
Well, welcome, everyone.
Yes, welcome. Okay, so the next task is election of the committee chair for 2025. And I'm going to nominate Alina.
I'll
Whoever's
second.
to your left.
And we have a second.
Yes.
All right.
Do we
Do you
have,
have any comment, public comment then?
I just think you're a very capable person
Oh.
and you can do it. Do we have any other nominations? Any volunteers?
It can only be you or I.
Yes, I know.
All right.
Okay. So I suppose since we only have one nomination, we can do this by acclamation. Alina, you are now the chair.
All right. Thank you. All right. Guess I take over the meeting then. So we will be starting with unfinished business. And the first item on the agenda is the new employee handbook for 2025. I don't know if someone is presenting that.
Yeah, I will. So this is obviously a new employee handbook. It's replaces an older handbook. I think we had that's probably outdated. There's obviously been a lot of changes as far as rules and regulations. So this is a draft version. So if you've found something or as you peruse through it in the next few days, this will be coming to the board at the first meeting in March. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you see anything that needs to be changed, or if you have questions, please call myself or Jen. And you can we'll walk you through it. But it just basically this is what a new employee would get. And the handbook just kind of talks about certain rules and regulations. We also have another handbook we'll be talking about later, which is the employee handbook. I'm sorry, the personnel rules and regulations. So that's a little bit different, but some of the stuff might actually be in both of these books. So again, this is just something that we're updating to make it compliant. And all these items that are coming to you today, Jen deserves a big standing ovation because she did most of it, threw it all together. So good job. So, anybody have any questions on this?
I have a very minor question. I was just a little unclear about the distinction between the employee handbook and the personnel system rules and regulations, also known as the personnel system policy. Are those different things?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't find the employee handbook online and that puzzled me.
Yeah, that's because it's right out there. And so, yeah, they're a little bit different. The personnel rules and regulations is more of what's allowed and what's not, where this kind of covers everything as far as COBRA, covers holidays and things like that. So that's the major difference that
Okay, thanks.
in a quick word, real quick.
Is it intended to be placed online or?
It will be,
Okay.
once it's been approved.
Great.
Anybody have any questions or anything that we didn't catch as we put this together?
Did we have a new employee handbook prior to this that's obsolete now?
I believe so. Did we, or did we even have one?
I've never
Never
seen
had
one.
Yeah, this is the first time. Yeah.
So
So,
is Lisa involved heavily in this, I assume?
yeah, with her and Jen both. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I had some comments on it. I think all the other documents, when they talked about sexual harassment, they also talked about gender being included in that, but in this special section, gender was not included in that, and so we could add that, that would be really great. And then when we talked about the alcohol policy on it says page 22, and they talk about it on 46. There's also a standby alcohol policy, so it starts talking about it, doesn't really talk about the standby, and then it talks about it later in that. So just making sure that's super clear about what the rules are for the standby. And also on page 46, there was a typo. I think it said her in there, something there, her, like it got, the language went from like a she, her, or he, her, whatever, and to there, and there's just like a leftover her in there. Oh, there it is, page 37, add the gender because it's missing specifically on that page. And then I had a question about on page 47. Just kind of the wording around marijuana that was in there and it being a controlled substance. And since it's legal in the state of California, I don't know how to visit that language so that reads appropriately. And then page 71, it also says we still have only 3 committees and the E&E are still put together in that, so they need to be split apart. And, oh, that was the next one. Sorry, I went too far. Sorry. Page 71 was the next one. Sorry, 6.
That's it.
Anyway, sorry. Then I think that's it. Maybe 71, maybe 47 was the next one too. Sorry, I should have split it out by pages.
That's,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
to
it.
answer your question about marijuana, it is legal, but you can restrict it as far as work, at work. So that's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it was the way it was worded was that it was a controlled substance, and I don't know if that's still how it's viewed in the state of California or not.
We'll have to double check.
It
with
is
legal
by
on that.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. That's it. That's all I had.
All right, and then the next one, I'm sorry, anybody else have anything? We'll make those changes. And then the next one is the board policy manual. This one will have all kinds of different changes. So I know Director Hill has pointed out that it phrases interim general manager several times. We probably just to refer to it as general manager, but it doesn't matter whether the person's interim or not. It's just
Yeah.
the general manager. So we'll take that out. And then obviously the cover says January 7th. We'll do it when it's adopted, whatever the date is and the resolution number. Anybody have anything? And again, you can see the in red, the things that have been added and the things that have been struck out as we move forward.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
No, not a problem. Sure, I definitely have some input. It's up to the committee to decide what to do with that. Should I go down my list?
Sure.
So the red lines that I saw all seemed fine to me. I thought they improved things. It was great. The question that I have concerns the history of this document, because a year ago at this time, the committee began working on revisions to the board policy manual. And it ended up not going anywhere. Everything sort of fell apart and the committee stopped meeting. But at that time, I had submitted a number of suggested changes that are no longer sort of part of the history of the document. So if people are open to it, I'd like to resubmit at least a modified version of those. But I'm not sure if people want time offline to review those, or if they want them to be in front of them in written form, or if I can talk people through what I'm suggesting. So that's a question for everyone.
Oh, if you have suggestions for it, yeah,
I do, I just don't know how much. Okay, I'll tell you where I'm headed.
How much volume do you have?
But it's certainly going to be maybe a half dozen comments. Yeah, so you can stop me at any time.
Oh, I think that we don't have a whole lot, so you're welcome to go over them.
Okay. So I think most of my proposed changes are in the area of guidance. So for example, there's a separate question in my mind about, what things can be put in the board policy manual to have a direct impact and kind of a certainty of impact. And I thought the one change that I saw in there already about allowing the board president to, as a point of order, limit discussion, I thought was productive, and that would translate into action. The things that I'm proposing are more about possibly trying to provide guidance, which is the case with a number of the board policy manual items. So they're saying, here's what we expect directors to do. And but it's up to this group whether or not you think these are good recommendations or worthwhile recommendations. And so let me walk through them.
Could you turn your headphones down just a little bit? The echo is, it's hard
You're
for
still
me
hearing
to
too much?
focus on you.
Sure.
I'll just unplug the headphones and then.
Right, I'm worried that it'll be better if I mute.
Okay.
So. Section 5J, Code of Conduct, that's on page 8. I don't know if people are following along or not, but I'll tell you where I am with it. I recommend that a sentence be added stating, nevertheless, board discussions shall not be targeted at the public unless motivated by a specific public comment. Board meetings are for the exclusive purpose of conducting district business, and director comments and questions are for the exclusive purpose of ensuring that the board has all the relevant information that it needs to make its decision. So the motivation for that recommendation is that, well, frankly, we've had experience with board members using the meeting as a platform to pontificate, and using the public as the audience. And when you do that, you distract from the purpose of the board's meeting, and you, in my mind, you introduce, inefficiency and frustration. So there's the perfect example. These are all going to be like that. They're going to be judgment calls, and the question people have to, come up with their own answer to is this a good recommendation, and is it a worthwhile recommendation? So.
The recommendation?
So the recommendation is that we add this additional directive, because this is in the context in the board policy manual of saying, how should people behave? And I'm saying it might be helpful if we tell them explicitly, don't treat the board as a platform for your public performance. You're there to participate with the board members in making specific decisions, and they're the only audience. The public is listening in. So I had specific wording there, but that's where people might want to see that.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that this would cause as much disruption as not having it, in the sense that in general, board members do feel that they have the right to address the audience. And as long as it isn't a lengthy, as you call it, pontification, I think it's worthwhile. The audience oftentimes raises questions.
I hear you. I did put in an exception for when the audience had a question.
But I almost think this is better handled by the change that's already in there for
Let the board chair use his discretion.
chair uses his discretion to cut off discussion when it's getting lengthy and when it's getting non-productive.
Personally, I think that's a very reasonable position. I don't have a disagreement with you on that. If other people have a comment.
Oh, did you read specifically what you wanted? Sorry, there was a lot. I was like
Well,
trying to get
That's
to
why
where
I
you
suggested
were.
people might want to
Yeah,
have these in front of them in a separate meeting.
yeah. I mean, you're welcome to send it to me and I can review them as well and see and look over them.
But for the moment, if people are inclined to agree with Jeff, which I think is, like I said, a very reasonable position, I'm inclined to let that one go.
Yeah. Well, I do see the point that you're getting at as far as it hasn't been better as of late, but it has been an issue in the past where these talks go on and on and on. And I am, as a scientific background, I am much more concise with how I speak. And so I just have definitely a different style than that. And so I do think it takes away from the meeting. But, again, if you're putting that language in, then we have that, it's still up to the board president, at his discretion, to decide those things. So I don't know how much teeth it would have, back to Jeff's point of actually being able to control the board discussion.
Well, I think in interest of expedience, I'd be happy to let my suggestion, to discard it, because I don't think it's essential.
Okay.
I had another one that's along the same lines, and you might have the same response. It's clear who this is targeted at. Directors should not repeatedly restate the same arguments, nor should they return the discussion to issues that have been previously resolved. such actions are detrimental to the board's core responsibility, which is to make decisions and move on. It's just an advisory. You can have it in the board manual or not. It may not help, but
I like it.
I'm not gonna comment on that.
um,
And our
Any other-
our other citizens here probably haven't attended enough board meetings to know what this is about.
Oh, I know.
But I can tell you,
All it took is one meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think the big issue when it comes to, I think we have it a couple of times when it's gone to vote and it's already voted out and then it still comes back to
Yeah.
comment. And I think that absolutely needs to be taken care of there. Because once the vote is done, it is done.
Yeah, that's what the gavel is for.
I mean, I think all these, if you trust the board president to manage it and don't think it's helpful to put it in the board policy manual, I think that's a legitimate call. There are a lot of things in the board policy manual, though, that are of this ill. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't object to putting it in there. I'm not sure if it'll be greatly useful, but I don't object to putting it in there.
Yeah.
I mean, the point you're making is valid. And you know, ultimately, the board will end up voting on this as a whole. So there will likely be comments. So
The last time I had a discussion in this meeting with a board member about my recommendations, I was told that they were the most undemocratic recommendations he ever encountered in his life. So, okay. So that one, I think, I understand people are kind of on the fence, maybe, maybe not. I had one here that says, well, let's see, this is purely for the board president. And I don't know if you think it'll be helpful, but I said, actively try to facilitate board discussions by intervening to clarify what questions are currently open and by proactively seeking to move the ensuing discussion to a productive resolution. So where I'm coming from here is that a lot of times the board discussions just are a sequence of semi-related comments and they're not leading anywhere. It's hard to tell what conclusions the board is collectively coming to, or what things have been resolved, what things have not been resolved. So the idea here is, I think the board president tend to view their role as kind of traffic cop and just to try to control the flow of discussion. In an ideal world, I think they'd be facilitators. I think they'd advance the discussion by summarizing what points have been agreed upon, what points are open. So I'd like to set the bar higher, but that's just me.
I don't have a problem with that.
No.
And my final suggestion, I think, is less controversial. If you look at item 14, which is about committees, it suggests that each year will begin with the review of the strategic plan in conjunction with the general manager. And the problem with that is that there hasn't been a strategic plan for quite a while now. So I proposed a different wording, which says each committee will discuss with the general manager the major challenges facing the district for the upcoming year that are under the committee's purview, and identify any elements of the current strategic plan that pertain to the committee. So I'm just trying to keep the spirit of that consultation alive, even when there's no strategic plan.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I actually had questions about that because I have never done that. Any of the committees that I've ever sat on as far as reviewing the strategic plan. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of news to me. So I was more curious about, where that was heading as well, as far as the committees. Is that, do you have any
Yeah, I
insight on
think-
that?
what Mark's suggesting is actually more vibrant, more doable, more up to date, because usually the strategic plan, it's dated. And, you know, even if you try to update it, you just can't keep up with it.
Mhm.
And so like right now, we're trying to come up with, or we are coming up with a new capital projects list and a prioritization of that, which will be coming to this committee and coming to the board next month or so. So I think by doing it the way Mark is suggesting, it makes it more current,
Mhm.
where I think a strategic plan is kind of it's like a map, but sometimes you get off course, if you will, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or it just sits there and it's like, yeah, we did that 10 years ago and it's not been updated. But I think what Mark's suggesting is actually speaks to what's going on right now, currently. And I think that's just the way I look at it. I look at a strategic plan as it's kind of like the holy grail. You don't touch it. It just kind of sits there for eons at a time. But anyway, but I like what Mark's saying because I think he makes it very clear it's within their purview and things like that. So yeah, I think that's a more useful statement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this is an excellent thing to do, and it forces the committees to address the plan each year and look at it and see where we are and make changes. So it sort of sets the table for the next few meetings at least. So I would recommend that we.
I'd like to take that.
incorporate
That's all
that.
I have. I mean, Alina, it's up to you how you want to handle this. I can certainly email you the wordings that seem to get the best reception from the committee. I don't know formally how you can process those, but
Mhm. I think that would it be practice that it comes to the chair of the committee, that I would be handling that? Or should it go to
I would
someone
think
else?
that, yeah, Mark would take that to the chair, but then also disseminate it to us so that we can include it into the policy. So that the next time we meet, it'll be in there, and
Mhm.
then you'll be approving that document to move forward
Okay.
to the board. So that's what I would do. But I think having a couple sets of eyes on it would be a good
Mhm.
idea.
And it's a little bit hard for me to like hear and ingest it, but I do hear what you're saying, Mark, as far as the board policy manual. And I've also, there's not a whole lot of teeth to this board policy manual. And so if we do have some of these things that are being violated, like what's the consequence? Like, how do we handle it? And, that was a big thing that I thought, like, when do we censure someone? Why do we censure someone? This came up recently that there wasn't really a strict protocol for what to do and nothing really became of it. And so I think not only having specifics in there, but also consequences to failing to do these things. So
There is the issue also, though, that within my understanding of things, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but is that the board could censure another board member for misbehavior at meetings or something like that. But there's really no teeth behind that. I mean, we can't fire the board member. We're paid a pittance, so there's no money no financial penalty to be had there. For those of you of the public that aren't aware, the board members get the grand sum total of $100 for a board meeting.
Oh, my.
And we get $25 for attending these meetings. So, there's really no financial penalty that's going to accomplish anything there. So we have to keep in mind that, really an awful lot of keeping order at the meeting is the board chairman exercising the gavel and other board members voting someone down if there's a problem. Because there just aren't any teeth as to, we can't fire an elected board member, for example. We can't force him to go sit in the corner or, wear a dunce cap or anything like that. So.
well, did anyone else have any comments, Cheryl or?
I've written and edited a number of policy manuals, and there's always wish to deal with a particular problem with legislating it basically. And I found that it's really hard to do that because you start getting really detailed into the behavior that you're trying to address. And it's really dedicated to just one person. So where we see holes in the policy manual, it's great to fill those holes in with some policy or procedure where we can address those kinds of things when they come up generically. But if you try and legislate just for a particular person, it becomes very difficult. So my only suggestion at this point, being the brand new member and only seeing this stuff without any context really, other than the context I got in that one meeting, is that you make it as generic as possible to try and address this behavior as it comes up in general, not particular to one person. And that's a dance.
So just the further comments, since these meetings are much less formal than a regular board meeting.
Right.
We're just having a discussion here. Having been the board president last year, I felt that the only really effective vehicle I had if things got out of control was the board president has the unlimited authority to declare a recess. And I came this close to declaring a 15-minute recess, one meeting last year, and clearing the room, telling everyone leave, come back in 15 minutes, we're in recess. That's really the only serious thing you can do, other than, you know, calling the police or something if a fist fight breaks out or
But
something.
he knows better than that, you know.
And
He knows how far he can push it.
And so
it's so obvious. So
my approach to being board president was let the people talk. Because if you've got something on your chest, get it out, and you walk away saying, at least they heard me. So I'm sort of, you know, personally opposed to trying to draw little fences around people. And I do think that, you know, calling a recess is probably a fairly effective way of doing it. And like I said, I came this close in one meeting last year.
Right.
And I probably should have.
So maybe that's just something to be dealt with the new president, understanding that that's their prerogative and that they should use that liberally if necessary to maintain decorum. Because as a member of the public, it was embarrassing for me to see that kind of behavior happen. And while he had some good points, he belabored them, and snarky comments and under breath comments were not appreciated by a member of the public. So
the board meeting I was referring to, every public official in the county watched the video of it within the next couple of days. I attended it was, I can't remember what the occasion was, but the city of Scotts Valley had a picnic going out by City Hall for the public, and the police department was the host and all. And I know most of the officials in the city of Scotts Valley, and as I went to the picnic and was walking around, every one of them stopped me and said, "Oh, you had quite a meeting the other night." What went on, you know? And literally every one of them had seen it, and emails had gone around to everybody's buddies in the public official positions and things. So,
Well, to keep us on track though, so we can
Let's go on.
continue down this,
Yes.
Shelley, did you have any comments on this specific?
It sounds like you're trying to have a policy broad enough to manage a behavior, like you were saying. And really, policies and procedures are about just that. The policy is broad enough and generic enough that it outlines what it is you wish to accomplish. You can have addendums to that, but then under each position description, you have what that is accountable for, and who's chairing said committees also has what the committee is about. And then also, what is the function? What do you have? New business, outstanding business, you know, time for Q&A, and then you limit it with time. You know, in the agendas, that's 5 minutes and then you say time.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever is responsible for that,
Mhm.
and then that's the procedure part.
Mhm.
And so trying to chase after someone who sounds like they're all over the place. I don't even know. I don't know this individual, but it sounds exciting.
Well, yeah,
But that's, you want to get to what you need to get to first.
Yes.
If you have outstanding business, deal with it. In healthcare, you know what we have to get to. We do the assessment, we have patient care. Your patients are your customers out
Mhm.
here. And what is important for those customers, what's important for whatever the foci are for the water district? What are your pressing to-do items, to complete items? And that's why I think the strategic plan, even though it may be dusting off, you should have meetings that address the strategic plan as far as the goals. Does it need
Mhm.
refreshing? Does it need a new outfit? Something is going on with the strategic planning. That should be annual. You should have an annual, like you do an annual budget. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. And as far as my comments on this, I noticed that the watershed education grants on page 73. I believe that those are no longer because of the person actually we're talking about. So I would like to see those come back. They're in the board management or in the board policy, and I would like to see the water district going back and doing some of those water education grants, since it's written in there. And then my only other note was I guess again, like there is no repercussions for the board members violating this, and I would like to see steps for a censor put in the board policy manual. So at least there's something we can point to, like you violated this X amount of times, like you're up for a censure vote. Because otherwise it's like, okay, well, that's great that you wrote these things down, but there's no further repercussions to violating them. That is all I had. And if anyone have any further comments on this one? Okay. And please, Mark, send me all of them. I'll read all of them. I'm
Okay.
very interested.
Yeah.
And I guess we can disseminate it to everyone. All right, so I guess we're moving on to the personal rules and regulations, item 4C.
Yeah, and in there you can see that most of the items that have added have come after section 10. And you can see that we've added, for instance, in section 14, from 14.3 to 14.8, we've added 6 different policies that didn't exist before. So they're in there just to make sure that we're being compliant, being proactive, and making sure that we're having a responsible workplace for people to work.
All right,
Any questions? We'll attempt to answer.
do you have any comments, Cheryl?
There were a lot of changes to this particular part. And I had questions. I have more questions than suggestions because I'm not there yet, but I'll get there. But for all these changes, is there training for staff on these changes and how they came about? And so wondering about that. And specifically on the sexual harassment, is there sexual harassment training? Is it beyond just this policy?
There is sexual harassment training. Yes, and it has to be done, I believe, every 2 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is
Different
happening.
levels. So supervisors have
Right.
2-hour training and, staff has an hour.
Okay.
And some of those policies are previously, they've been around for a few years, but they were never quite integrated into the policy and procedures document. There's only a few that were new, and that was the insubordination and the vehicle use policy. Those were 2 that I just wrote, but the other 2 were never quite meshed and put into that document like they should have been.
Well, good on you for reviewing it and putting that stuff in, making everything mesh together, because this is the boring part of, government work, and but it's essential. So good on you for all of you for updating these manuals. It's tedious work, but it's important.
Mark,
It's boring, but nobody wants to. When you need to use it, it needs to be there.
It needs to be there. Yeah.
I have no value to add on this.
all right. Shelley,
The education plan that she mentioned, that was when I was reviewing this, was around what are you doing for your educational templates? And you have staff meetings, and is this rolled out on a monthly, I don't know how staff meetings are, but on a monthly basis? What are your priorities? How does it get addressed? And will it refer to see the,
We
the
we have
department.
staff meetings every other week. And so, and HR, when we get this approved, HR will roll it out and we'll go over those items that have been changed. And then, hopefully the directive will be for each department head to roll those out to those, to their employees.
Okay. So it ties back,
Correct.
you know, the employee, if there's an infraction on any account, then yes, it was rolled out on, March 1st. Here it is. Here's your signature at your staff meeting, and now we close.
Mhm.
To everybody, when usually you hand a policy book to somebody, you make them sign where they've received it and that they're responsible for knowing it. And da, da, da.
Jeff, do you have any comments? I didn't really have anything else for that one as well. I think everything else was pretty much covered. So I guess we'll be moving to 4D. What topics would this committee like to see?
Oh.
Oh, what did I?
Could I, since we're still on this
Yeah,
stuff here, before we move on, I have two other quick notes here. On page 16 of,
No, besides you.
on page 16 of the email that you sent us here, you're missing a bullet point between giving false or misleading information and failure to report.
Okay, I see it, yeah.
Yeah, you're missing a bullet point there. And there's also on the board policy manual, just a thought to consider. It has been practice of the district that if the general manager or interim general manager is out sick or gone for a week or two, a short-term, reasonably definable absence on vacation, that an acting general manager has been approved or appointed to run the district for that period. We don't have anywhere, as far as I can tell, in our rules, regulations, handbooks, et cetera, a definition of what an acting general manager can do as opposed to a regular general manager. And I'm not sure whether we should, but it occurs to me that if you have a senior staff member that's being appointed acting general manager for the period of 2 weeks while the general manager's on vacation, you might not want to have that person firing people and doing things like
Or
that.
you might have.
But it's something we should consider going forward, is creating a definition of an acting general manager. And I would consider that we would want to put in there duration of how long a person can be acting general manager, and if there are any differences in authority versus a regular general manager, because this is obviously someone that's temporarily holding the fort while John or
Yeah, well, if
whoever.
you had, for instance, you have somebody on medical leave, and they're gonna be gone for a couple of months.
Yeah.
You may wanna have it, the acting person can be it for like 2 weeks. Anything further than that must be approved by the board.
Yes,
Or something.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll look around, I'll check some other policies and see what other people have and
Yeah,
we'll bring something.
because it just occurred to me, I mean, for a long time, the board has typically appointed, or not the board, but the general manager has appointed someone to be acting general manager, but it occurred to me in reading this that we don't define that. And we probably don't want an acting general manager who's only in the position for 2 weeks or a month or something like that to be, making drastic budget changes, firing senior staff, things like that.
I'll look into that, absolutely, good idea.
Is there only one general manager?
There is one general manager.
Okay. I'm just used to a scenario where manager in the peri-op setting. If I go on vacation, the other
Yeah.
manager, another,
Yeah.
of equal, will become my backup.
Yeah.
And then my charge nurse or supervisor then becomes the person on point that will run to that appointed manager that's covering me with the daily operations. So it's all about daily operations, not, oh my gosh, you're sitting in on a budget committee and you have the ability to hire. No, that's the manager level that has that ability, not an acting. Unless, of course, then you would run it up the flagpole. So that's why I was
We
wondering.
have a general manager who is responsible for all the operations and reports to the board. Reporting to the general manager, you have a series of department managers. You have a chief engineer, we have an operations manager, personnel manager, et cetera. In the past, we have on occasion appointed the person who was the environmental and special projects manager to be the acting general manager. But that decision was made by the general manager at the time. It just occurs to me that this should be a little more formally codified as to how we do that.
And you didn't know, John is our interim general manager.
Yes.
He doesn't have his little thing. I know like Jen has her district secretary and her tag, and he just has John over there. So we are recruiting right now for a permanent GM, and right now he is fulfilling that role for us.
Yes, John has graciously come out of retirement, has a long depth of experience in managing small governments, and we've been quite pleased to have him. He's added a great level of stability to things. So, but anyway, it occurred to me that, in the hierarchy of things that we have, there's a hole there. So,
All right, any final comments? Are we good? Okay, so moving on to 4Ds. What topics would this committee like to see presented at future meetings? When we start with Mark, I'm sure you have a few list.
I'm sorry.
No. Thank you for doing your homework and being here with your ideas.
Okay, let me try and get myself set here. So there's some specific ones and some general ones, and I mean, in the specific ones are not necessarily things I'm advocating for. They're things I'm curious about. Do you anticipate that the Haven development issue will come before this committee? It's just a question. John or Lena or anybody.
I think that was the hope, that we would dig in this committee to the legalities of what we are required for as a district, is what I was understanding. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, John. That is.
Yeah, I would think it would. I mean, in talking to LAFCO, they said that it would be some time would have to go by before they even get to this point.
Okay.
But just to let you know, it's according to Joe at LAFCO, it's their big issue is going to be wastewater. And so according to him, it's almost a possibility. But obviously, I think he's keeping us informed. So if we start getting some movement for that, then we would definitely bring that to this body. So
Great.
and again, it would depend on timing. If it was something that we couldn't just wait for a meeting, we'd probably I'll shoot you guys a memo. Hey, this is what we're doing, and come to a meeting, a regular board meeting. But I don't see that. I think we've got assurances from LAFCO that they're going to keep us in the loop, so we won't be dropping any balls.
yeah, they are in our sphere of influence area, but not within the district.
Yeah.
So we would have to annex a portion of that property for the district. That
Okay.
a lot of decisions had to be made.
I know that President Smalley had said, maybe I'll circle back with him, but he had wanted us to like really understand what our legal role was in that. That's where I was getting that in.
It might be nice to have Joe LAFCO come and just talk about from their perspective what he sees. Whereas the same property owner owns like a 1.6 acre parcel that is in our district, just up the road. And so, and Joe is saying, you're the only water source that he has for that project. And of course, my question was, well, do we set precedents? If I hook him up there, do I set precedents because he owns, just a few thousand feet down the road? Even he said, no, it doesn't obligate us in any way, shape, or form. So it's, I think from a standpoint, and I don't know how much Joe could talk about it, but it would be kind of nice to know on the LAFCO end, okay, what procedures does this guy have to follow? Where are we at? Where are you at? Has he asked for permits? Whatever. And obviously this project has some permits that he doesn't have to do because he filed it in that that time frame where there wasn't a general plan or whatever. So
Mhm.
so some things he's exempt from and some things he's not. So if this committee would kind of like that, maybe we could ask Joe to chime in on a Zoom in and
Good idea.
have we could ask him if you'd like.
Yeah, probably the number one thing I get asked right now is about the Haven project, and
Okay.
it'd be nice to have some answers, at least for the public. I know we're a long ways off from it, so we shouldn't get people super worked up because it's a ways out there, but just being able to have some kind of answers for that would
Yeah,
be
I'll
nice.
check it out, and maybe he can't do that. I don't know what his
Hmm.
legal restrictions are or whatever. But all I can do is ask. So
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
keep going.
Another very specific one that I hope will get to this committee, but there's a process for it that I'll respect. Is our group has, submitted a letter to the board recommending further attention to the ratepayer assistance program. And I could imagine that both admin and budget, could have interest in reviewing that and discussing it. So more general things that I'm interested in the possibility of would be because one of my pet peeves for a long time has been that I don't see that we as a district have a very visible or even necessarily any tracking mechanism that keeps both for committees and for the board and maybe for the district as a whole a running list, a table really of current open issues, of their current status, of when they're scheduled for the next milestone. So a lot of times at board meetings, things will appear and disappear, and once they're not at the board meeting, they're invisible again. And other things will never get to the board, and you won't know for a long time that the district's been operating without any grant writing assistance. And so there's no real mechanism that I am aware of for helping the district to notice when things are falling through the cracks or getting deferred, or when they have an unclear target, or when they don't know what the priority of them is. So in my ideal world, there would be something that's more concise, like a table that just helps to keep visibility into everything that's currently underway. So that would have to be a new development that I imagine the admin committee might weigh in on how to do that if people were interested in doing that. But that's on my list of possible things to pursue.
I know you brought that up at a Friends of thing as well. And I wanted to mention that I didn't know if you knew about the tidbits that go out, if you were following those. It goes out, where is that? I always get it in my email, so I don't know exactly where that's
It's,
located on the
on
website.
Transparency
Okay, that's where I was. Oh, there
website.
it is.
Every Monday, every Friday. I try to get Friday. This last week was Valentine's Day, came out Saturday. But anyway, I do tidbits, and each department gives a report. And just what's going on, like operations. It could be, hey, First Street's going to be closed for 4 hours. We're going to do a leak.
This is great. I did not know about that, and I will pay attention to that now that you've told me about it. But it feels like that may be different from what I'm asking for.
It is, but it's just kind of, I know that you like a lot of information, and I forgot to tell you that was coming out all the time, so it was more like.
That's a weekly deal. You find out under transparency, and it's just a department update every week. And also starting this year, a little bit different during our budget hearing, we have to report out, there's AB 25, 61, or 31. It is now a new report where you have to report out at least once a year all your current openings in your organization and under what bargaining units there are. And if you have more than 20% openings in represented groups, and there's some other hoops you have to jump through. And it was first, this is the first year My recommendation to our finance person is that we do it every May in conjunction with the budget, because obviously personnel impacts the budget. So, but again, you're not required to do it in May. You can do it anytime, but it has to be done once every calendar year. So my idea was, and it's got to go before the board, was just to make it a policy that it comes every May. We do the personnel audit, if for lack of a better word, I'm calling it a personnel audit, but that's what it is. So those items will be, for instance, you mentioned grant writer, it'll be in there. We don't have a grant writer, that's an open position. We don't have a construction inspector right now, that's an open position. So those will be reported out.
And even like in the tidbits, like Chris was saying that he was looking for
Mhm.
grant writer and, the RFP had been posted and, he was putting timeframes and timelines. So those tidbits, I think, will provide more information than you probably think.
Yeah, that's why also circling back, because he specifically said grant writer, and I was like, I remember seeing that in the tidbits about like where we were standing. But I hear what you're saying, because a lot of times things get brought up and then they lost. Like a lot of people really want like the locks on the fire gates, and Mark wrote it down in his little book in that we were supposed to come back, and then it didn't even make it into the recommendations for the last when we got as far as what we were going to do for emergency preparedness. And so again, it kind of got lost. So and I think also Director Largay has kind of touched on this as far as like putting tracking from the master plan, so we like understand the flow of everything is a little more organized.
I can
Yeah.
tell you that as when I first started on a committee and then on the board, finding out what was coming up next was not easy sometimes. And so,
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to know what's coming up next, and it's even harder to know what should have been coming up next, but
Mhm.
people have gotten too busy to pay attention to it. And of course, the fact that people are so busy is part of the problem, but if we think there's a relatively low overhead mechanism that could help, that would be of interest to me at least. Yeah. I'll just mention for completeness 2 more possible future topics, because I think they're more ambitious and more complicated, and I don't think we can tackle them right now. But if the thing that's most limiting the district's performance is insufficient staffing, and we're struggling with that, then in my mind, that would make it worth taking a closer look at what other measures we could possibly take to improve the situation. So in other words, having a kind of a focus meeting on, okay, what is our possibility for updating, improving our strategy for recruiting? That would be an example of something that I'd be interested in, but I know it's challenging. I just hate to ignore it. And I hate to just go month after month and say, well, we have a position open. Maybe we'll get an applicant. Maybe we didn't like the applicant. Since we're having such a hard time, it feels like we should try and figure out if there's anything we can change and improve. And in a similar spirit, but maybe even harder, is trying to figure out whether there are things that we can do to improve our connectedness with the public, the public being the customers, but also being the voters. And I know we have a certain amount of kind of routine PR that we do, and that seems like the norm and the minimum responsible thing to do. But I am interested in the broader question of whether we're missing opportunities to get better, I would say, connected with people by more innovative mechanisms, because it's still a problem for the district that sometimes the customers don't behave in ways that are helpful. I mean, even when they have a real issue, they don't know how to handle it in a way that makes it easy for the district to respond. And conversely, when the district has a real issue, the customers can be hostile to it and not support the district's concern. So for me, that's a possible future area of investigation. It's like, is what we're doing for our outreach working as well as it could? Are we missing anything?
Mhm.
Open question.
Oh, I feel that one. This is getting back to that watershed grants. We don't do that anymore, and that was
Mhm.
a big draw to bring the community into SLV. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Set.
That's it for me.
All right, Shelley?
I like the outreach aspect because as a new person here and having been recently retired for 2 years, getting involved in one's community is where it's all about. And if they're, about educating us, because, when your community at large, you're going to work and you're involved in things. So how can I learn about what's important to me and my community? And if that's outreach, I like the word outreach, that kind of says, aligns with the healthcare too. How are you getting in touch to find out what are the needs of your base? And what does that mean? And are they understanding how it impacts them or not impacting them? So education, outreach is really essential. And then communication, it's kind of like a little triangle.
Okay. And Cheryl, did you have any?
Well, my two things that I was going to bring up were the personnel issues with recruitment and communications. And that is very broad, but how can this committee assist with some of the personnel vacancies that we have? And I know that's an issue, a big issue that we need to address. And just as a consumer, communications, I didn't always feel as a consumer that I was getting the information I needed from the water district to understand what was happening, what were the issues, and how could I, as a consumer, help address that. I have a number of people in the community, in my community, that are well informed, but not everybody has that. So as a consumer, how do I find out what's going on at the water district, and how can I be part of the process? And the other part of it is just that communication back out to the community too, just emergency information. I remember I turned on my tap one day and the water wasn't coming out, and I'm like, what's going on? And nobody knew anything. And I called the hotline and got somebody there, and they were like, yeah, we're figuring it out. But there was no system, no connection between that, water not coming out of my tap and finding out why that's not why is that happening, and what's the problem, and how is it going to get fixed, and how long is it going to be out. And so there was a disconnect there with me as a consumer. And so those are the kinds of things that I would like to see. What are the communication gaps? Is there a communication plan? Do we need one? And that would include talking to our consumers about those kind of things that directly affect them in the moment, but also longer term things. Here's the things that we're doing to improve your water service. Here's the things that we're doing to make sure that the water is clean, and here's a report on the water that you're receiving. I mean, things like that. Are we going to run out of water? How do we get our water? I mean, all those things would be helpful. And I'm one of those people who really want to know. And I know not everybody does, but and some people have the wherewithal to do some research and some people don't. But my concern is that we have the public knowledgeable about what we do and has our back, basically, because the big fear with these little water districts is they get sucked up into a bigger water district, or they get purchased by a private entity. And I'm a big believer in nonprofits and that utilities should not be for profit. But not everybody believes that. And I think it's important that we tell people what we're doing and how this is a good thing for the community. So I would like to see that be a priority, I guess. And it's a huge one. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that I agree that those two things are big issues, and with a big question mark, is this something that we can help with in this committee?
So I would like to make a comment on that. I agree pretty much completely with you. And to some extent, we are all victims of the fact that so much of communication has moved to online that people have an easy tendency to say, well, it's on the website, why didn't you go look for it?
Right.
And we seem to have lost the art of reaching out to people rather than passively putting stuff up on a website.
Mhm.
And one of the things that one of our other board members has made an issue of a number of times, and I frankly fully agree with him, is that we don't have a really first-class customer relationship management software package, a CRM package. If we know that there's a main break on 236, we should be able to go and say, give me a list of all the email addresses of the people on 236
Right.
and send them a message.
Mhm.
And or a phone, even
Or
a
a
phone
text
system,
or
that
a
bring their
phone
phone and
call,
tell them
yeah.
a recorded message. Your water's out, there's a break at such and such a location, it'll be fixed in 18 hours or something like that. And we don't have that capability to reach out to people when there's a difficult situation. And we have a standardized billing system that sends bills to people and everything, but I think a customer relationship management software package implementation would be very useful. Also, I believe it's within this committee's purview to talk about the public relations agency, and I think one topic for a future meeting should be, have we given the PR agency the right direction? Are they focused on the right things? And are they? My view is so far that 90% of what they do is posting on the web and email. And there may be other things. I mean, there's a whole lot of people up here that read the Valley Press and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I'm not sure we do enough of how to put it, old-fashioned media.
I think multiple modalities is what we need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what we did for, like when we were applying, we had so many applicants for the committees, that was kind of what I figured out. Is I'm like, let's not just do social media, let's do the newspaper and let's blast it as many times as we can in
Yes.
between now and then, because people forget.
Yeah.
You see it and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then before you know it, the time's up and you forgot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we did get such a big amount of applicants, was just, keeping it in the forefront of people's minds. I mean, that's a big part of it. I'm biggest one that does that. I'll see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then it's gone,
Right.
and I never come back to it. So,
This
but
is
having it in the paper does help. for
this
sure.
is not Palo Alto where everybody's got $50,000 worth of computer equipment in their den and knows not only how to use it, but how to program it. This is I mean, I'm not saying that people don't have computers and don't look at websites here. Everyone does, but it's a more traditional community, and we need to keep our eye on the traditional media.
I agree.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that just in general, the water district needs to up their presence out in the public. Like we have a community conversations meeting coming up. What is it, March 3rd? The parks is going on. They've invited, everyone to that in the community, and it's something the water district, could show up to. We have the mountain fair that we donate water to, but like last year it was just warm water, no one's standing there. It would be nice to get, maybe some cold water. It was a really hot day. And someone there interacting, talking to the public.
Perhaps.
Right. Yeah, an
Yeah.
outreach
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
And just being more involved, and giving out those grants again. And it's not a lot of money for the water district, but I think it comes back like in tenfold. I know LAFCO does a lot of their calculations about like how much money you get, but like what you do with those dollars, like what you get back, and like doing something like that to like show like, okay, well, yeah, we spent, you know, $5,000 on some small grants to give to the high school students, but in return, like what, you know, what are we getting for that? And you're getting a lot more that comes back. So definitely dealing with that. And I don't know as far as the rate assistance program, which committee that should go to, but yeah, I see that coming up in the board packet. That's something that I would really like to visit. I think that if we heard really strongly from our community that's something that they support. So whatever committee that goes to, I think it definitely,
I think that's finance
Yeah,
committee.
that's
one.
budget
yeah,
finance.
so it's gonna go over there. So unfortunately, yeah.
But the communication part of that, once that's all settled, that could come here. How do we inform the public about that?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
We could always maybe do a survey,
What, oh,
similar to what Chris does, put a
okay.
survey out, like he does for some of his environmental projects,
Mm-hmm.
and just see what the feedback from the community is.
Mhm.
on it.
Yeah. But I think there's some really great ideas here. I do think we leave the room at 11 here, so,
Yeah.
Just
We're running out of
a quick, talking about being involved. I just, received a call last week from Dave McNair from, Scotts Valley Water. And, we're trying to conduct a fire meeting, if you will. It'll have the school district, all the water districts, all the fire, personnel. They want the board there. I have to talk with legal, but at least two of our board, I haven't even talked to the board yet, so you're getting this before. Jen and Lena are the only ones that know about it. But anyway, it's trying to get it scheduled for March, late March, early April. But basically, it's just going to talk about, you know, what each area is doing as far as, you know, fire prevention, you know, what information that we can give you to make you aware of what, you know, the abilities that we have should fire happen. And just to make sure that everybody's represented at the table. He's waiting to get commitment back from Scotts Valley Schools. But he's already got San Lorenzo, I'm sorry. He's waiting for San Lorenzo Schools to get back to him, but he's got the rest of the fire department, so all the water board is gonna attend. City council, I believe, from Scotts Valley is gonna be there.
Mhm.
So it's just an idea, just putting our heads together, showing what we have and showing where deficiencies might exist where we can. Now, you know, maybe they don't have something, but we do, and we can get that to them in an emergency or something. But anyway, it's just an idea, just a forum, and there'll be more information coming about that. So again, I think it's critical that we get involved in that, so.
Yes.
Anyway, but I'll give you more information as it comes out. And that's why I know, yeah, we do have to get out of this room.
Yeah. All right, any final comments or? All right, well, I have 10:46 and I will say that this meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bring it